Hi everyone, I'm State Senator Judy Schwank, and I am delighted to be here with you this evening with our BCTV home viewing audience to talk about a topic and an event that I'm sponsoring from my office that's coming up, and it's the Aging Parent Fair that will be held September the 5th. It's coming up relatively quickly, but it's an event you don't want to miss, and it's free. And just to kind of, whet your appetite for what we'll be talking about and to spur your interest, I've invited two of our presenters from the conference. It's Aging Parent Conference. And I've invited Jessica Jones, who is the Deputy Director of the Berks County Area Agency on Aging. We call it the AAA, right?
Yeah.
And also Robert Kreitz. Bob is a lawyer at RRS Legal, LLC. And Bob is an incredible presenter on the legal issues, the kinds of things that we need to understand as we begin to age. And at the outset, before I go to my guests here tonight, we have a long time, we have almost an hour to talk about your concerns, your questions. So I hope you'll call in. That's what makes this kind of fun when you do that. Absolutely. But I also want you to understand something, and I'm sitting here and I'm speaking for myself. The fact is that this isn't just about your parents. I've dealt with this already. My parents, unfortunately, have passed away. But I'm thinking about myself, and I'm thinking about my husband. I'm thinking about my brothers, my family, and wanting to prepare myself for what the future may hold for us. And so I hope you listen and think about that a little bit, because I think all of us, enjoy directing our lives and, being who we want to be, living our best lives. But you can do that your entire life if you plan appropriately, right? So absolutely. That's what we're going to talk about. And Jessica, I'm going to turn to you first. Sure. You have been an incredible resource for us in the county, not just for this conference, but in general for the work that you do. But you're going to be talking about elder abuse awareness. And even before we start to talk about that, let's talk about the issues of aging and the population that we face in this country. That's kind of like what they call the silver tsunami, and they're talking about that in terms of the workforce, but it's more than that.
Correct. What we're often seeing at this point is we've seen an extreme uptick in the amount of people we're serving, the services we're providing, and just the general needs of what individuals require as they begin to age. One of the major issues that we're seeing in talking about the silver tsunami, an interesting statistic is by 2050, 20% of the population, the national population, will be over 65 or older. That is a huge increase. So that gives you really a sense, and we're really only at the very beginning stages of all of this. And we're all just beginning to see a lot of the newer, different types of issues that are coming for individuals with aging. And our office is available to assist individuals just with general resources, information. We have live staff that when you're contacting our office, they are available to provide you with general information. It may be that you're a caregiver. Right. It may be that you're inquiring about services for yourself, or maybe even just calling with concerns because of your neighbor or the lady that you take to church every week. It just really can be the gamut. We have a lot of different informational services, but the Aging Parent Fair, the conference, from what I'm understanding, is going to have a lot of different areas that will certainly kind of envelop a lot of the different resource information that we provide and can give individuals that time to really listen and then follow back up with more questions.
I agree with you. And just to repeat, this is the Aging Parent Conference. It's going to be held on September the 5th. It's a Thursday evening. The doors open at 5:30, and it's going to be at the Muhlenberg Middle School. If you came last year, we were at the Alvernia at the Bernadine Sisters Conference Center. We ran out of parking spaces, and so it was a little bit difficult. But we have plenty of space, and we're going to have 24 different sessions for you to get the information that you need. It will be 3 hours well spent, because you will have some of the best experts in the county and the state in terms of helping you navigate the issues of aging, whether it's for yourself or for your parents. One of those experts that we're going to have is Bob Kreitz. Bob, you've been doing this for a while. You've got quite a reputation in this community as, one of significant expertise when it comes to the issues of an aging population.
Well, thank you, Judy, and it's always a pleasure to work with you and the folks at the Aging Parent Conference. We had a very good experience last year. We had a very good turnout, and I'm anticipating it to even grow this year.
I hope so.
Looking forward to it.
So, Bob, let's talk a little bit, because I think people get overwhelmed. Where do I begin? What should I have? You start thinking about issues like, where will I live? Will I have enough money? What about my health care? But there are building blocks, right, Bob? There are places to start, and that's what you're going to be talking about.
Yeah, I want to stress basically two things. Number one, that although there are some generalities that can be made, every situation really is different, and you can't use a one-size-fits-all. You have to look at each individual's situation and then tailor it accordingly. The other issue is, and I think you used the term building blocks, Judy, which was a good term. I believe strongly that just like a house has to have a solid foundation for it to exist, your legal documents are really your foundation. And basically 3 documents are what we start out with, and that is a basic will, a financial power of attorney, and then a healthcare document containing a healthcare power of attorney and living will. I find as people come to me, and I get calls on a daily basis from people with families in crisis and distress, and I find that many people either don't have these documents at all, or they're very old, they need to be revised, they're not quite up to snuff the way they need to be.
Or they don't know where they are.
They don't know where they are, yeah, we have that too quite a bit. Losing the will, especially after time of death, it's a traumatic enough when you lose a person, but when you also lose the will, the family is quite upset at that. But seriously, you need to have that foundation of those legal documents. Again, very, very important to have, and that's one of the first things that we do. We look at, of course, I always claim too in these situations, no matter how much money you have, especially placement issues are always going to be driven by the health of the individual.
Okay.
So, we look at it in, I guess you'd call it today, a holistic manner. You look at the individual, you look at the health situation, you look at all the financials that they have. But again, you got to have those documents in order before you can really get further with that.
So don't get overwhelmed. Just think of those 3 documents that you at least have to start with.
Yes.
And all of us can do that. I have those documents in place. I'm not planning for my demise soon, but you certainly don't know that. And I think having experienced the death of not just my parents but other relatives, to have that kind of information available it's a relief to a family.
Really is.
Isn't it?
Very important.
You're dealing with the emotions of the situation, or even before that, you have a parent who suddenly falls, or you have a spouse who has, a life-threatening incident, and all of a sudden the level of care needs to change. Those kinds of things come at you, so you've got to have those documents in place to get you prepared. So I talked about the fact that we're going to have these 24 different sessions, and so that gives you a dilemma, right? Which ones am I going to go to? That was another complaint that we had. We had about 150 people, as you said, I think, Bob, and we're hoping for more people. It's absolutely free and some of the best advice you'll get. But we are putting together a handbook that we've asked each of our presenters to give us some information about what they're going to talk about, So if you miss a particular lecture, you will be able to, you'll have a copy of that and be able to refer back to it. And I hope you'll keep that document, because I think it will be a helpful guidebook in helping you deal with these kinds of issues. So when we were waiting to get on the air and talk to all of you out here, and by the way, we encourage you to call in. We'd love to have your questions. If the studio can help by putting the phone number up for us, it's 610-378-0426. Give us a call, because your questions will really help us to tailor the conversation to exactly what you would like to know about these issues. So Jessica and Bob, we were talking about the fact that the baby boomer generation is now starting to age out. They're starting to retire. The leading edge of the baby boomer generation actually is, in their 70s, right? Mm-hmm. So we would like to think the population is healthier than previous generations were, but that's not always the case. There are always issues that mitigate that to a certain extent. But that baby boomer generation, we get blamed for a lot of things. I'm one of them. You can blame me, but it's just this huge slug of population. And as that moves through their lives and gets into the aging part of life, it's going to have a dramatic effect on our society.
Definitely.
Right? So, I'm thinking of some things, and maybe Bob and Jessica, you can think of some issues too. Like, for example, having enough on the level of government resources, having enough funding to help deal with some of the services that need to be provided. Jessica, I know you deal with that a lot.
We often do, and as I spoke earlier, we've currently gone to the waiting list for certain types of services that we have, because we are seeing such a growth in certain areas. Right now, in particularly our protective services area within our agency, where they investigate allegations of abuse, neglect.
Is it really that bad?
We have doubled in just our sheer numbers of investigations.
That's not good news.
And it's not, but the good thing is more people are reporting. More people are understanding, and we've really done, from a statewide level and a local level, we've really tried to push to educate individuals on what is out there, what the issues are, and not to turn a blind eye, because one of the major issues that we talked about earlier was individuals that are falling victim to scams,
right,
victim to some levels of financial exploitation, perhaps through a family member or a close relative or a neighbor, because what happens is there's this developed dependency. So when you have these individuals that are living in their home, they need help, they need support, but they also need the help and support of some of the people that may not be very healthy for them.
Right.
And in some ways, and in a lot of cases, what we can do is we can reduce those risks for people. We can help to link them to services, link them to supports, and move them through a difficult system in order to be able to age in place and to have their needs met in a more comfortable manner. Because the reality is, our general overall perspective from aging is we want individuals, we don't want to see people having to leave their homes to get the services
right,
and the supports they need. We'd like people to be able to live independently and live a full life and remain in the community and feel that they are making the decisions that are best for them and empowering those decisions.
And I think getting, again, back to the baby boomer generation, Bob, you talked about this too, that the greatest generation, we're, certainly, unfortunately, there aren't many of them left,
now,
right?
yes,
It's
yes,
phasing out.
yeah.
But the baby boomer generation might have a very different perspective in terms of aging.
They will.
What would you say would be some of the things
Oh yeah,
that you
there's
see?
tremendous changes in the attitudes of what I call the greatest generation, which was, again, my parents' generation and our baby boomer generation. Jess, of course, is too young for to be a baby boomer.
You and I are in that
you
class.
and I are in that class, definitely. But again, if you think about it, they grew up very differently than we did. Our generation grew up very privileged in comparison to the greatest generation, who for the most part were born in the 1920s, grew up and were children during the Great Depression. Then as 18, 19, 20-year-olds, many of them, at least the men, were sent overseas to fight wars, both in Europe, World War II, and Korea. So they had a very different perspective than our generation did. And they were more savers, from what I found. Baby boomers are not savers. They're more in the way of spenders. Other factors that I think are significant with that is the average greatest generation individual had a defined benefit pension plan that they would receive in addition to their Social Security. Most baby boomers do not. Most of us, myself included, we don't get a pension. And we rely on our own investments, 401ks, things of that nature. And let's face it, a lot of people in our generation, did not save and have not saved as much as they should. And that's going to become a significant problem, I think, down the road.
And I think, too, not that I anticipate Social Security running out of money. I won't get into that debate. But the fewer people we have working in the population, the less support we have to help pay the benefits of those of us that will be retiring. So that's something to think about, too.
Definitely.
So you've got to think about preparing yourself. And saving, and it's not necessarily too late to do that. So we'll certainly be able to talk about that and advise people on, how to prepare themselves financially for retiring as well.
And I believe, as in last year, you're going to have some financial advisors and people at the Aging Fair, which I think is very important. As I always do as an attorney, we like to give our disclaimers of what we don't do. And again, I'm not a financial advisor. I don't give financial advice. However, it's almost impossible to do what I do as an elder law attorney and not get involved in the individual's finances intimately, because to do any kind of planning for them, if there's a nursing home situation in their future, you have to know what their finances are. And even though I don't make recommendations as far as that, I have people that I refer to on that. When you do what I do, you still have to be very cognizant of their finances. Extremely important.
It is. So Jessica, you talk a bit about elder abuse and, the fact that those numbers are increasing, and you'll talk a little bit about, you will do a session on that as well. What are some of the other constraints you're seeing in your job, because you're responsible for the, entire agency? And by the way, the area agencies on aging, there's one in every county. We happen to have a very good one here in Berks County under Jessica's direction, but that is one of the doors that are available to go through to get information and to get the resources and at least the information on services. What are you seeing right now in terms of that?
What we're typically seeing is individuals that are struggling. Housing is a major issue in Berks County. And actually, it's across the board. It's a major issue because, as we talked earlier, individuals that are having difficulty paying their taxes, just doing their day-to-day spending, paying for prescriptions, those sorts of things are just your kind of everyday pieces that if you're contacting our office, we can give you some really good resource information, hook you up perhaps with an apprise counselor to help you make some decisions on your health insurance coverage in addition to your Medicare benefits.
Right.
Things that will be more comprehensive for you and will help you in certain areas where you're struggling. But also as far as housing is concerned, the major issue is people just making the day-to-day ends meet. Being able to, and these people, Senator, they're not living high on the hog.
No.
They're really just trying to make the day-to-day, making sure there's food on the table. They may need to buy a few things here and there in addition, but really trying to help individuals with budgeting and trying to help them make good decisions as they move forward. And part of the problem is we have difficulties at times with individuals that may not be eligible for some in-home services, but they might be eligible just for some simple information and some information that perhaps will help them to seek out a property tax rebate,
Right.
or
Right.
a rent rebate program, or getting connected with the PACE program for prescription assistance. There's a lot of different things out there that people don't know about, and quite honestly, a lot of the applications you're doing, they're very simple applications.
Right, they're not hard to do. Nobody has to necessarily do it for you. You don't have to pay anyone to do it for you, for sure. We have a home viewer, which I'm very happy to have somebody calling in. Go ahead, please.
Hi, pardon me if you already covered this topic. I just joined you.
Oh, I'm glad. Go ahead.
Being that you're covering the topic of planning for the golden years and aging, if you could give the audience a ballpark figure of what it would cost someone to live in an independent living situation in one of the places around the county for, let's say, a one-bedroom apartment that would include a living room, a kitchen, and a bath, something like that, and might supply you meals and laundry services if you so choose. What is the ballpark figure per month for something like that?
That's a very good question. And
Yeah.
maybe Jessica and Bob, I'll turn to you and ask you,
Okay.
maybe we better define what assisted living is. I think
Yeah.
sometimes, I don't say our home viewer is confused, but I know people do get confused. I was, in terms of exactly what is independent living, what is assisted living, and what is skilled nursing care. And then talk about the cost. Thank you for that question.
Yeah. Okay. I call it, when I'm working with clients in this, what we call the continuum of care, where a lot of times you'll start out, and I'm still looking for my first client after practicing law 40 years that wants to leave their home.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to leave their home. Sometimes it becomes necessary. But certainly a home care type of situation is, very prevalent, that, we do what people can do to stay in their homes. Independent livings can be anything literally from almost on a very, what I would call very freedom-oriented to very much a restrictive environment. And I use that in a positive sense for someone who may have cognitive issues, need a memory unit. But I see personal care facilities anywhere from, and Jess, chime in too if you would, that literally are what I call the subsidized personal care facilities, that they will basically take your Social Security or pension and they'll provide a roof over your head. Anything from there through independent living at some of the more upscale facilities, maybe $2,000 to $3,000 a month.
Plus a buy-in fee, right?
Some
In some of them.
Yeah, I'm really not talking about, the continuing care communities now yet, which do have the buy-ins. Your average personal cares, I find here, again, vary tremendously. You're going to have some, but again, the cost oftentimes depends upon the amount of assistance that you're going to have. You might have some as low as $2,000, $2,500, and you'll have some up in the $5,000 to $6,000 range. And when you get into, obviously, for people who need more assistance with their ADLs, their activities of daily living, such as bathing, dressing, a lot of it is their prescriptions. Do they need help with that type of thing? Then you're getting up more in the personal care homes towards the $5,000 or $6,000 range. And if you're in a full memory care unit, then you're probably getting more towards the $6,000, $7,000 range. Now, when you're getting into your SNFs, into your skilled nursing facilities, there you're talking on average, I think in Berks County, around maybe $350 a day. So you're talking $11,000 to $12,000 for that. So
Those are sobering numbers.
Yeah, and again, it varies tremendously. And again, so much of it, as I said, depends on the individual needs of the person, where they, not only where they need to be, but then their choice as far as where they want to be.
And that's one of the conversations that our intake staff are trained to help individuals with, to kind of make those higher level decisions. And that certainly is something that Bob also does on a day-to-day
Right.
basis, I think, when he's consulting with clients.
Absolutely.
But really talking with people and trying to talk and channel the professionals to help you to really make those decisions. And I agree with the ballparks of everything he's kind of given you, because it really can be a very large gamut.
Right.
I want to stress,
dollar-wise.
too, that it varies tremendously, too, around different areas of the state. And as you might imagine, as
Yes.
you get closer to Philadelphia, you know, the main line, you're going to pay more. Out in central Pennsylvania and more rural area, you're going to pay significantly less. This also varies tremendously state to state. In our national organization, Association of Elder Law Attorneys, which I'm a member of, I'm amazed sometimes at areas that the costs are really significantly lower or significantly higher than Pennsylvania.
That
It
is
really,
interesting.
It really varies.
Yeah, it does. We have another home viewer. Are you still there, I hope?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Hi. I just wanted to ask a question.
Yes. Maybe you could turn off your TV so we could, or turn it down so we can,
Oh,
we don't,
okay, yes.
that'll
all right.
help. We'll wait for you.
Okay. My husband has been gone for a few years now, and he was cremated. Now, I just wanted to know is there a way I can check to make sure that I'm going to be cremated? Should I call the place where he was cremated at a funeral home to ask if they have me down on the cremation, if it's paid for? Do you think they'll tell me or not?
Jessica can handle this.
I think certainly calling whatever funeral home you used, asking if you had any other previous prearrangements, and then also having the discussion with them, because maybe there are some prearrangements. And that's actually a really good point that you bring up, is that is another piece of the pre-planning, is really trying to make sure that your wishes are carried through. And if you want to be cremated, and if you have a certain plot, those are certainly things that you would want to keep in line. So that's a really great question and point to bring up.
And so you could find that out
Absolutely.
by calling.
Call
Yeah.
and they'll help you.
You know, call the funeral director, and if you don't have it, I'm sure the funeral directors will be happy to assist you with setting something up in that regard.
You know, that brings up another point too, is that, you know, you may have, I did, purchase your plots, you know, in the cemetery that you wish to be buried in, and their documents, there's a contract for that. Can your children find it? Or can the individual who will be handling your affairs after you pass away, will they be able to find the documents that they need? Like I mentioned before, Bob, do you know where the will is?
Yep.
Do you know where some of these things
That's
are
very,
at?
very important. You can have all these things, but if your children, your family can't find them, it sort of defeats the purpose
Right.
of having them, I suppose. But no, seriously, we always make sure in my office that oftentimes, and I know different law offices will do things different ways, and I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way to do it, but oftentimes we will hold the original wills in vaults at a local bank. The client will have a copy, and things such as the powers of attorney and the healthcare documents, they will have originals because there are multiple copies of those, and I will also have originals. And I'll get calls frequently from a child saying, we have a note that you did documents for Mom 10 years ago, but we can't find any of the documents. I said, never mind, you know, don't worry, we've got some originals here, we'll send them to you. And, you know, that frequently happens. And one of the things you'll see, too, is people don't have safety deposit boxes as much as they used to.
Like they used to.
Because there are a lot of things now, you know, years ago, you might, Judy and I probably remember, Jess is probably too young, to remember stock certificates. You know, and people would load all those things, bearer bonds and e-bonds and things that you get in payroll deductions, and you'd put those in safety deposit boxes. Now, most people have investment accounts, we call them in street name, and you don't have the need for the safe deposit boxes anymore.
Everything's online.
Yeah, right. It's online, or at least it's on a paper statement if you're getting that. Problem is, I think that's resulted at times in, you were talking about, for instance, the burial plot. Normally, people would keep their burial plots in a safety deposit box.
Right.
Now, I do find a lot of people, though, they have either a strong box or a safe or something at home, and they do keep these things there. But again, it's important not only to have them, you got to tell your family where you have them. That's one of the things, whenever we have a signing of the documents in my office, I'll tell them to make absolutely sure that, you know, your kids or whoever is serving as your agents know where these documents are.
That's really, really important. These are great questions, and I hope more
Yeah,
home
very
viewers
good.
call in. This is wonderful. But again, I want to emphasize that the Aging Parent Conference is going to provide detailed information on some of the questions that you've asked about, and a host of other things too that we can talk about. For example, Jessica, I know you know about this, and we can talk about it in a minute, is that Berks County is entering into a statewide program called Community Health Choices that will have an impact on services people get through the Area Office of Aging. We'll have a presentation on Alzheimer's 101, what you need to know. There are so many challenging circumstances that all of us face in our lives, whether it's for you individually or your children or your friends or loved ones. These are you need to have the information before these things happen to you. That's what this Aging Parent Conference is all about. The other thing is, and this was a very popular topic last year, was the difference between hospice. What is hospice exactly? I remember having that discussion with my brothers for one of my parents, and they were, that means the end, right? It does not mean the end. People do survive hospice, as a matter of fact, but it's a level of care that can be very, very good for your loved one. But what is palliative care? Palliative care. These are all things that you need to find out. Just as maybe when you were younger, you were looking at choosing a college. Now you've got to think about, what kinds of choices are you going to make for your life. And so that's what I encourage people to do. But this will all be part of the Aging Parent Conference that will be held September 5th at the Muhlenberg Middle School. And by the way, to register, you can contact my office online. My website is senatorschwank.com, or you can call my office at 610-929-2151, and we will sign you up for that. I think it will be 3 hours well spent. And the whole goal isn't necessarily to get you to buy a certain service. This isn't the kind of conference where you're going to be asked to purchase something or sign a contract. This is to inform you and to give you the information that you need to make those decisions when you get to that point. And I'm really proud and pleased to say that Bob Kreitz, who is our attorney at the table with us today, as well as Jessica Jones, who is the Deputy Director of the Berks County Area Office of Aging Agency, they will both be presenters at our conference. And you're getting just a taste of their knowledge tonight, but you'll certainly learn more about it that evening. And I hope that you will definitely participate in that. One of the things that, we have a individual who comes into our office from the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the VFW, who works with veterans. And there's some specific issues that veterans face as well. We will have a presenter on that, but maybe you two can talk a little bit about what you see in terms of what you advise people about what's available to them if they were a veteran, if they served our country.
Often when we identify our consumers that need assistance with the veterans, we certainly are pointing them directly to the local Berks County chapter,
Right.
Yes.
Which is always very helpful
Right.
with individuals. They link them with services because there are actually a lot of services out there available for veterans. It can range from just the medical piece and providing their medical care along with prescriptions, but then there are also additional pieces that they can provide, things such as in-home services and supports, depending upon the type of veteran and the amount of services that they can access. So we often point them right to the local Berks County Veterans
Affairs,
Department.
and they are outstanding.
Yep.
We
Yes.
are very fortunate. Dale Durr, who's just recently retired, was an amazing individual, a man I very much admire, and did a great job of directing it. But now we have a new director in place too,
Yep.
so who has also earned the trust of our veterans. Bob, now we're looking again, getting back to that baby boomer thing. It's the Vietnam vets, right?
Yeah, that's what we're seeing now more and more. There is a very significant veterans benefit, and this is probably the one that I deal with more than any others, and it's called Enhanced Pension Aid and Attendance. And that's a benefit where you need to be a veteran, and the standards are, most people are able to meet them. However, there's one standard that you need at least a general discharge, meaning you can't have a dishonorable discharge, and you need to serve during wartime. Now, that's a little tricky, because wartime is not for you history buffs like me out there. Most of us know that basically World War II ended in August of 1945. But the wartime period where you might still be eligible for benefits, I believe runs through either January or March of 1946, during the time that a lot of the guys were mustered out. So you have to fit the categories of wartime, and the local VA office will have that. And then there's a certain asset limit, which right now has been expanded. There have been some new rules that just took effect last October. And it's roughly $125,000 of what they call countable assets. And then there's a standard that your expenses as defined by the VA have to exceed your monthly income. And one of the expenses is, for example, on the question of the gentleman had as far as the cost of personal care and independent care, the cost and the full cost of a personal care home is considered a medical expense for VA benefits. So this can be a very significant benefit for the veteran themselves. It can be up to around $1,900, $2,000 per month, and for a survivor, it can be as high as $1,000 or $1,100 a month.
That's not
which can
insignificant.
really no, it's not, and that can really make the difference whether or not a person is eligible and able to stay in certain personal care homes or not. So again, it's a very important benefit. Whenever I'm meeting with people that fall into that category, again, we do want to counsel them in that regard. And then I agree with you. We send them straight over to the VA office. They've done an excellent job. They somehow are able to navigate the quagmire down in Philadelphia and some of the bigger areas too. So, but no, we have an excellent office here.
They are
I
very
will definitely,
good.
both personally and professionally, miss Dale Durr
Yes.
at the office.
Yes,
Great guy.
he's really an incredible individual who has served Berks County
But a very
so
important
well.
benefit.
Yeah, it is, and of course, we have a large Vietnam veterans population. Here in Berks County. When you go to some events, you do see, certainly the veterans of the Korean Wars, and not to discount either those in Persian Gulf engagements. And certainly there are younger veterans as well. But those are all things that you need to learn about so that you can take advantage of those programs that are available for you. And I think that's the whole point of this Aging Parent Conference, is to help you understand that there are resources and services out there. I think I've said the word overwhelming 3 times already tonight, but I'm going to say it again because it is. It's a lot of information to hit you all at once. Some of us are alone. We may not have a spouse. We may not have a network of individuals who can provide us, some information. So you have to educate yourself. I think we're learning tonight that the value of a good attorney who truly does understand the issues of aging. And Bob, as I said before, you're one of the best in terms of the knowledge of information that you have.
Well, again, we all have our areas. When I give presentations to people, I have a kind of a sad standing joke that if you commit a crime and come to me, you will go to jail for a long time. Because I have absolutely no knowledge and working knowledge of criminal law. But in turn, in these areas, you do not, we have some very fine criminal attorneys and friends around Berks County. You do not want to go to them to do this type of work either.
Exactly.
And, you don't go to the podiatrist for a heart problem. It's the same issue.
The expertise really does
very
matter. It really does. And Jessica, we'll certainly have sessions on this as well. This is really, how to navigate all of the social services. But I'd like to talk with you a little bit about social engagement. I'm learning more and more how important it is to have for seniors, for all of us, as a matter of fact, a network of friends or acquaintances or outlets to engage with people. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of that and what you see with seniors?
Absolutely. We often see it attributes to a healthier view in life.
Right, no matter what your age.
Yeah, and if you are more socially engaged, and it really does contribute. And there's lots of different sorts of resources available in Berks County around different social outlets. There's multiple senior centers in different areas of the county, which provide many, many different free programming, daily lunches, just that general socialization to get people out, to get them thinking, to get them moving. So that is another aspect when you're even choosing and looking at the relocation piece and looking at an assisted living or looking at a personal care home, talking to them about the types of programs that they offer to really help you make a better decision. Now, not all of us are the most social butterflies, but there may be certain things that you might enjoy doing and games or things to participate in. So really trying to find that resource in your life is really helpful, because I think it helps keep your mind sharp. I think it helps you to engage, it helps you to make better decisions, and it also helps you to learn, because nothing better than sitting at a table with all of your friends and they start to talk about, my daughter and I just went to the attorney and we did this. Well, what did you do there? And really just starting to learn from others on different ways and word of mouth on different places. Where can you go? What can you do? How can you be engaged?
Well, that'll be a piece of this conference
Definitely. I would agree completely with what Jessica said. And in fact, I believe just over the last few weeks, I read an article, and I'm not sure if it was in the Reading paper or not, but that loneliness, and I remember they used that term, loneliness, was one of the greatest debilitating factors in health, equivalent to many other what we consider more common diseases. And I was quite surprised. It was a good article.
Yeah.
But I think that goes right to Jessica's point in that regard.
Yeah, I think that will be a part of this. Luann Oatman, who is the executive director of Berks Encore, will also be a presenter at the conference. And it's not the kind of aging that but was 20 years ago, right? Or the kinds of activities. There's still bingo, and I actually like bingo, but you can create the kind of social life you want within those centers, and the activities that you're interested in are certainly ideas that they're willing to listen to and to take up, right?
Absolutely. They're constantly putting different types of programming, educational programming, just fun programming, but health and wellness is a big focus. So you don't have to be a complete fitness nut in order to be able to participate in any of those health and wellness programs. You can do some real basic things just to help you feel better and get you moving and get you out.
So, these are all, it seems there's such a wide array of things to think about. But this Aging Parent Conference, and again, it probably should just say Aging Conference, because it's for all of us that are going to be dealing with those issues sooner rather than later, right? So I'm very hopeful that people will participate in this. I just want to reiterate, it is Thursday, September 5th. The doors open at 5:30 p.m. It's at the Muhlenberg Middle School on Bellevue Avenue. right, up the street from the shopping, Fifth Street Highway and the shopping area there. So it's not far off the beaten path there. And there'll be plenty of parking. And we really want to encourage you to participate in this. Maybe bring a friend, bring someone with you who you think might need to have this information too, like a spouse. At the last conference, I thought it was so interesting. I saw parents sitting with children, adult children, right? So, and they were looking at each other about, well, did we think about this? And, we're talking about maybe dad selling the house. So where would he go next? And, what are our options available for us? This is a good start to learn about that. So I hope you will take advantage of it. And we do have some time left on our program. If you'd like to call in, our number is 610-378-0426. Your questions have been great this evening. We would, we'd welcome them. And you've got two of the best experts sitting right in the studio right now that will help you answer your questions. And of course, they'll be at the conference as well. Bob, you offered probably, it was almost standing room in your session because people, wow, free lawyer advice. They were there.
It's always a seller.
Right?
Yeah.
It was a hot item at last year's conference.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about what you'll be talking about.
Well, I'm going to be
this year.
talking, Judy, about those documents that are so important to have, wills and financial power of attorneys and healthcare documents. And again,
What are healthcare documents?
well,
What do you mean?
there's really two things. There's a healthcare power of attorney, and a healthcare power of attorney is a document similar to a financial power of attorney, except you're naming someone, enabling someone to make your healthcare decisions for you. It would have broad HIPAA powers in it. That's the Healthcare Privacy Act, to enable the agent to talk to your doctors, get your medical records, things like that. And you want to make sure that, and again, HIPAA is a very strict process. Most
What's
of you are
HIPAA?
familiar with HIPAA. It's the Health Insurance Portability, something or other, but basically it's the Health Insurance Privacy Act. Best way I can explain it is when you go to the doctor, all those privacy forms and things you have to find out.
Endless.
Fill out. They're endless. And then finally somebody asks what's wrong with you. But again, you have to fill all those forms out. It enables the agents, you want to have very broad HIPAA powers so that it's very clear that your agents can speak to whatever doctors or whatever medical personnel are, necessary. And again, I believe in very broad powers in that regard. Sometimes people will name only, for example, a child to serve as an agent, but their granddaughter may be the one taking them to the doctor every week or every
Right.
month. Make sure that your granddaughter is on there and that has the ability then to talk to the physicians. It's a typical situation. But the other part of the healthcare documents is what we call a living will or advance directive.
I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, and we'll discuss that in detail too, I'm sure, and we always get a lot of questions, especially on that topic. And again, that's where you yourself have the power, and certainly should exercise it, to make decisions as far as end-of-life issues. Again, it's difficult. People don't want to face their own mortalities, but let's face it, we are all mortals. And certainly, I think you want to decide how you want to live your final days rather than have somebody else or some institutional setting decide what's going to happen with you. And basically what you're stating is that in the event your physicians determine that you are now in, the standard is called an end-stage medical condition, that you're stating, number one, you want to be kept comfortable. We discussed, for instance, palliative care, hospice, things of that nature. Any kind of treatment to make you comfortable. But number two, you do not want life-prolonging procedures and to be hooked up to machines, things like that, if there's absolutely no hope. So again, very, very important. And as I explained to every client, these issues are not black and white. Unless it's some type of a traumatic event that ends your life, these are going to be very many gray areas. And, there's always a lot of... There's different viewpoints, I guess, in this area from people who have experienced situations with loved ones at end of life that maybe didn't quite go as smoothly as they may have wanted. And what I explain to people is nobody can guarantee, even if you have one of these documents, everything will go perfectly. But I can almost assure you, if you don't have these documents, you could have problems.
That's really good advice.
So it's very important.
And you know, it's true because you have children, multiple children maybe, that might be a part of this decision-making process.
And they may have different views.
Oh, I think that's probably true more often than not.
Yeah.
So that's certainly something to think about. And Jessica, you know, it's really great that you will be there because you really are the portal to so many services. Any parting thoughts on what you're going to offer us?
Really talking, I will have another employee there who's going to be helping us to talk about the agency general overview as one of the breakout sessions.
Great.
And then also I'll be talking about elder abuse and helping with individuals create awareness, and understand what actually constitutes abuse and what their options are, and things to look out for as time goes on. But the one last thing I did want to mention on the tails of what Bob was saying is that for individuals that certainly can't make it to the conference or still have questions about those types of documents, our office can be a resource to get you some legal services.
Yes.
Give you information on who to call, perhaps even accessing some additional legal services. So certainly calling the Area Agency on Aging can help you with those next steps if you're not able, if you have a limited income. We're available to help.
And you know, I think that's a really good note to end on, that this conference is for you no matter what your income, you know, what your individual financial circumstances may be. There is information, there is help. You know, there's assistance to do what you want to do to live your best life as fully as you can. So please join us. Attend the Aging Parent Conference. It will be held Thursday, September the 5th. Doors open at 5:30. It's from 6 to 9 o'clock at the Muhlenberg Middle School on Bellevue Avenue in Muhlenberg Township. And I hope and think it will be time well spent. If this just gives you an idea of the expertise that Jessica and Bob have shared here tonight, gives you a sense of the caliber of the speakers that we'll have there, I hope that gets you to call our office or go online right now, senatorschwank.com, and register for the Aging Parent Conference. I will see you there, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.